Hello and welcome to today's video. Bored, right? Just rambling. Another rambling video, you can tell by the title. This is about LTA South and Brazil. So I had somebody in the comments this past week um, ask for my opinion on why Brazil struggled so much this past week against LTA North, and I guess Brazil and Latin America, so LTA South in general. Um, so my thoughts on this. Well, everyone's talking about it, of course, and I mean, when you go 1-8, it's definitely alarming, right? You think going into this, hey, we're going to be really competitive. We're going to have an opportunity to, after let's put it this way, after Worlds last year, we see Payne get into the main event. That is noticeable. It's like, oh my God, Payne got into the main event. Our first seed got into the main event, surpassing the LCS 3 seed to do so. Obviously, Rainbow 7 certainly helped with that, but the point is, the hierarchy of things, 1 seed beat 3 seed, got it. So, Payne plays 100 Thieves this time around, and I thought, honestly, that 100 Thieves were going to struggle because Payne is in Brazil, and I expected the Brazilian fans to have a bigger impact on that entire weekend in general. I really did think that, based on how the comment section looks when, people are so supportive of their team, but it didn't happen. And I feel like some people are going to blame the start times of the games, but I think that's completely fucking irrelevant, and anybody that claims start times being a reason why, I think is just trying to make excuses. Like, you don't get big events like this in Brazil very often. So for the fact of the matter is, like, you should go out and support it so Riot can think about, hey, maybe we do first stand in Brazil next year or something, like, because hey, we know it's going to have support. So the fact of the matter is that that I immediately take out of consideration. But this is not necessarily about the fans and my opinion of their lack of I expected them to be more impactful and they weren't. But they want to know why the teams struggled so much, what needs to change. So we think about what's occurred so far this season. We have a fearless draft setting. Fearless draft is not applicable to Worlds at the moment. I've said this 1,000 times. So really thinking about this and how players are performing compared to what's going to happen the next 6 months, I think it's going to be very different. And the fearless setting also, one of the biggest reasons that I see a team that is not as strong being competitive against a team that is much better. We think of G2 historically. I always bring up G2, Western teams, just simply Western teams against Eastern teams, minor region teams historically against Western and Eastern teams. How have they succeeded? They've succeeded with being different. They've succeeded with aggression. They've succeeded with unpredictability. I've said it time and time again, year after year, about every event. I said it last year about Payne even going to Worlds. I said, this is a nice change. This is going to be different because Loud plateaued. Loud were predictable, and they were going to get smoked because they didn't change. And frankly, they still haven't changed all that much. The recipe is pretty much the same, even though they swapped out 2 players. It's essentially the same team, in my opinion. And that's why they struggled into a Cloud9. Still, because they are what they are. I look at that team and I don't see it being better with their changes. Payne have the same 5 players as last year. Now, their aggression gave them an opportunity at points against 100 Thieves this past weekend, which I think is important. That aggression is necessary. Cheaton played like he had nothing to lose, because that's what I said this at Worlds. You have to play like you have nothing to lose. Because really, in the grand scheme of things, at these international events, you don't have anything to lose. You don't. Look at the lines if you even care. I mean, obviously players shouldn't, but communities, look at the line. What does the line say? It says, oh, my team's the underdog. Well, what do they have to lose? And you can say, well, respect, dignity, this and that. Well, go out like you're fighting. Don't go out like a whimpering, whatever. Like, you got to actually go out and play at a high level. And then we think about the entire split as a whole. Latin America joins Brazil, and I've been joking. For one, the format is absolutely dog shit. The LTA format's terrible, but with the way that Riot has went with this 3 internationals in the Fearless and this and that, there was no way that the formats were going to look very good. It's just varying levels of shit, in my opinion. Whether it's group play, whether it's the LEC just sticking with their best of one format, which I think is better than the other regions' formats. LTA's was absolutely terrible. But that didn't help things either. The format harmed teams. It forced you to just approach the game in a way that it wasn't going to be very, very feasible for growth and success, in my opinion. You don't have an opportunity to develop. You get 2 series and you're done if you're a bottom feeder team. You get a couple more series if you're a middle of the range team. And then you get to the final event and you've played 4 or 5 series, 12 games total on stage or whatever, and you're done. That's no good. And does that mean every series has to be a best of 5? No. No, it doesn't. But the lack of games is troubling, and that's not just an LTA South issue. LTA North also had to deal with that. But it's going to harm the team that's, in my opinion, not as strong because they don't have as much of an opportunity to develop and get better. But then we also think of Fearless, circling back to the beginning. Fearless. You lose the ability to try different things as a surprise. So we think of G2, Pike, the years that they had success. Pike was a big pick for them, as an example. They also did weird compositions. In addition to that, just the way that they played the game was a bit weird, and that allowed them an opportunity to succeed against teams that just simply saw the game in one way. You see, oftentimes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a saying that I believe goes farther than just, those that have heard it in English or whatever. I feel like it's just a saying in general. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You have these systems where these top teams are just playing. And they're like, hey, worst comes to worst, we're going to play this way, and then we're going to get to a late game team fight, and we're going to win it. Coin flip the team fight, not even. It's probably 70-30 because we're the better players and we win. So you have to go into it with something different. Recent example, FlyQuest against Gen G, Nunu. That Nunu interaction with Doran is just a small, minute example of the grand scheme of, hey, if we do something different here, we find something that they don't expect, we have a chance. And they go to a 5-game series and have a chance to win and get an upset because FlyQuest chose to, hey, we're going to go all out. We're going to throw anything at the wall. We're going to see what sticks. But in Fearless, you can't really do that as much because everyone's doing that in scrims. It's not, hey, let's focus on these, 20 champions and we're going to mix and match because these are the strongest ones and whatever. No, in Fearless, you go to a 5-game series, 50 champions are gone now. You are getting to those fringe meta picks that people don't really think about as much in Game 5. Where, and the thing is, though, in Game 5. But the coaching staffs have been preparing all week for the thought that, hey, we're in a best of 5 this weekend. We do need to have an idea of what we want to do. We have to have an idea of what they might do. But in a regular setting, standard draft setting, you don't even probably consider those champions all that much. You maybe give it a tenth of the amount of time of the week in preparation because, well, what does it matter? And even not even the coaches, but the players in general. Are the players really, putting some effort into practicing those interactions and those matchups because are they going to really see it? Probably not. They're probably trying to perfect the matchups that they're more likely to see. So you think about, Brazil, how can they get better? Well, you've got to be willing to do different things. And when things go back to standard, and we're looking at MSI and Worlds, they need to be willing to be different. Vietnam, I mention them all the time. Brazil needs to take a page out of Vietnam's book and say, hey, these guys play really aggressive, and they play a lot of different stuff. And we have to not think of the game in a box. We need to think of it as a canvas where you can just play as many different things as you want. And I'm not getting into the nitty gritty of my methodology and thoughts on that. I feel like if you've paid attention to my channel long enough and just what I look at and consider when I think about LOL esports, that those sort of things are the things that matter and that can provide a difference, that I think people overlook. But it's just, it goes beyond players, and it goes beyond like you think about this. So was it Stardust last year, the year before? Loud picks him up as a coach, and everyone starts hooting and hollering and this and that about how happy they are and that, we got this coach and this and that. Well, Loud are playing a very standard brand of League of Legends right now. They're winning games, but they're playing a standard brand of League of Legends. They're playing a brand of League of Legends from a coach that comes from a standard brand of League of Legends. And yes, they bring that over and it works because, standard is has a good chance of winning, right? If we're both playing the same game here, but I have more experience, then I'm going to probably have a better chance of winning because we're both playing the same game. But if you start doing things a little different, you put your own twist on the game in the way that you're playing it, now all of a sudden, this standard thought process has to be altered and adjusted to this. Like, even just in general, like all sports, adjustments. Like, the biggest, at least I think about American football, one of the biggest things with coaches that people bring up is the ability to adjust. Can you go into halftime and can you adjust mid-game to stop what the other team is doing against you, right? You see what they're doing. You weren't ready for it. Can you adjust? But if you come into it and they know what you're doing, you're not going to force them to adjust. They're just going to keep beating your ass. Like, you need to do something to force them to adjust and see if they can do it. Like, I don't know. I think it's how, it just circles. Maybe I haven't even answered the question. How does Brazil even get more competitive? You just got to be willing to play like you have nothing to lose. You've got to be willing to try different things. You have to be willing to have your own identity that goes beyond narratives. Narratives are fun, but if you want to be a narrative-run league, then you need to understand that you should not give two shits about the results. Because narratives, I think narratives are created, they're storylines. Some are nonfiction and some are fiction. Right? But we know the nonfiction is the results, right? What are the results? Now, if you want to be in a narrative-built, region where it's like, okay, well, we're more worried about the magic and this, that, and third, that's fine. That's fine. Just when push comes to shove, don't be surprised that, hey, we focused on the narratives and now we aren't ready for what we have to do. It's just, I don't know, there's a massive fan base there, of course. The player base is huge. The viewership is huge. And, I don't even want people to say, well, we went from 10 teams to 6. No, your 6 teams should be better now. Those 6 teams should be better than when you had a top 6 when you had 10 teams. Latin America came in there, and everyone laughed at Latin America because they had barely any region going. Their studio held like 60 to 80 people or whatever the fuck. I don't even recall exactly. But they come in, and they take and dominate Brazil. Those 2 teams finish towards the top. And Isurus Astral is the only one to take a game. And it's because Team Liquid are the most predictable of the 4 LTA North teams, but also Isurus Astral have Birdall, they have Jose Deodo, 2 players that I think are one of the better ones in their roles in LTA South. And Myru as well. Does that mean that they're world beaters in Birdall and Myru? No, I think Jose Deodo is like really fucking good and got screwed by the LCS a few years back, but like you've got to understand that you need to play different, and that's why Payne had a chance against Thunder Thieves, because Cheaton and Curry, and more importantly Cheaton, played like he had nothing to lose. Brantz in 2022 played like he had nothing to lose. Like, what does he have to lose, really, in the grand scheme of things? Nothing. And he built his name. I mean, that was the first Brazilian player I really thought about outside of BRTT ever. And that's not to say the other guys didn't exist. It's just, there was nothing that made me, there was nothing like, there was no difference. Like, there's no, I don't know, memorable isn't really the right word either. I don't want to be, disrespectful. But the point is, there's no, like, the charisma, the aggression. It's just, I don't know. I like that, so that's what I think about. I think about the players that play aggressive. Like, they have nothing to lose. That, just are just playing with confidence. And it's just, I feel like it's not the case. I feel like you're just trying to play against a better team with the same, you're playing the same game. And you can't do that. You can't play the same game against a person that's better than you at it. You got to do something different. This game, the rules change in League of Legends every 2 weeks. Say with all my patch videos. And, some people said, I think in my last video, somebody said something about, well, they got upset or whatever, that, like, this only doesn't affect regular season versus, solo queue versus pro play. So you can't have that mindset either. You got to be willing to uncover every stone as a team that is not as strong to have a chance against a team that's better than you. And they say, okay, well, how do we get as good as them in the first place? That takes a lot of effort from coaches and buy-in from players. And right now, you don't really have either of that going on, in my opinion. You really don't. You really don't. And I think about LTA North, LCS, and Champions Queue. I mean, that's a disaster. That was a disaster. It was embarrassing. It was unacceptable. Just one second. All right. It was just unacceptable. Because got to think about it. The reason why the LCK and LPL and even the PCS, to a lesser extent, LEC, they have more players to play against at their level, player base wise. LEC, look at all the divisions that they have. Like, you could find, hey, I may be an LEC or a tier 1 solo laner. I want to play this matchup. Well, I'm going to go find a guy in Division 2 and say, hey, do you want to play, a few minutes or whatever, or a half hour of this matchup and go both sides of it and discuss it and things like you have options. You have options. Where in Brazil, in LTA North, Latin America, some of the smaller regions, you don't have as many options. So when you have a Champions Queue where you can play more competitive games and not have to go and sift through the shit of solo queue, you need to take advantage of it. And unfortunately, LTA North, LCS, just pissed that one away. And like if you're an LTA South team or teams in general, hey, as a group of players, if we want to be better, we need to put in the effort. And the coaches, they need to get together, or they need to take some notes from the East or even some of these European teams and things like that do things different and say, hey, maybe we need to implement that in our system. People are so stringent and strict on their management styles, their coaching styles, things like that. And I'm not claiming to be a coach or a manager of anybody. It's just, you need to be willing to change. You need to be unpredictable. But you also need to be putting in a shit ton of effort. You need to be willing to grind. And that's not to say people aren't grinding, but they're not doing it in the way they need to do it, obviously. I really find it hard to believe that it's simply, hey, the coach is perfect in this situation. They're telling them exactly what to do, and the players just aren't executing it on the rip. No, in the end, you need to set them up for success. And you need to have them believe that they have a chance if they do what you're telling them to do. It's just, I don't know. It's doable. In the end, can Brazil and LTA South and whatever, and even you take it to a lesser extent, you could go to Japan with the PCS, Oceania with the PCS. It's tough for those guys. Oceania's going to be really tough. Japan, not as tough, but Oceania, you're, for lack of a better word, you are on an island, and it is tough. But I believe to varying extents it's doable. It really is. To be competitive, to get better over time. Does that mean this Worlds, I'm saying, hey, if you do this, Brazil, you are going to have a chance to win Worlds? No, I'm not saying that. I don't, you know, do the magic and all that shit. No, I'm a realist here. But can you be more competitive? Yes. Can you repeat what you did last year and continue to build on that? Quite possibly. But you have to be willing to do the right things to do so. And in my opinion, it's just not happening. Payne still tried to do it, and that's why they had a chance. You know, and it's just, I don't know. I think that there is, there's just, it needs to get done. It needs to get done. It can get done. It's not a money issue. It's a buy-in issue. It really is. Um, and it goes beyond LTA South as well. LTA North needs to do it also. Going into this year right now, like FlyQuest are the team that have a chance because they play weird shit. But the other ones, I mean, it's fearless right now. In the end, we have to see too, like, I guess, going all the way back to the beginning. This first month, unless World's format incorporates fearless, this first month does not change. This first month really does not shed light on World's results. You have forced teams to scrim on stage. They have a chance to win money, sure. Money's good, money's great. But I wouldn't put it past some teams. We look at T1. T1 openly said we are playing Smash because we want to see how he looks in the lineup. They didn't say, if I recall, they did not say this gives us a better chance to win. And that's the big difference there. You're thinking of a team that just won Worlds back-to-back, finished second the year before. And I'm not glazing T1. I'm not a T1 fan. I'm not a fan of any team. But you can't deny that the last 3 Worlds, they've been the team that's the team to beat. They're the ones with the trophies. So they said in the end, we want to see how Smash looks in the lineup, not this gives us a better chance to win. And that's clearly showcasing to me that the team that's been winning Worlds, that's been the team to beat at Worlds, didn't value what this fearless setup was. Outside of treating it like scrims. So the next 6 to 7 months or whatever, 6 to 8 months before Worlds, we're going to find out what these teams are made of in a more standard setting. And then also which ones are going to get kind of stuck in the meta and in their ways, and we see the same champions played all the time. Some people don't like it. I don't care. I think however they want to do it, whatever makes a team think that they're playing at their best. It is what it is. Just don't, ask, hey, why am I struggling? Well, what are you doing? You're doing what another saying is, if you keep repeating the same things and expect different results, you're insane or whatever it is. Like, it's the reality of it. You're not going to get different results unless you change something. So it's just, man, I don't know. This was a big rambling video, definitely all over the place, but in the end, it's doable. It's doable for Brazil, LTA South, LTA North, LEC, PCS, LCP, whatever. Like, everyone has a chance here against LCK, LPL. You just gotta... There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. And it's going to take buy-in from players and buy-in from coaches to get it done. It really is, but... Either way, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.